The day started like any other. People went to work. Children went to school. The sun was shining and the sky was blue. No one knew that everything was about to change. It was 9:42 a.m. in New York when it began. A strange humming sound filled the air. Birds stopped flying. Dogs barked and ran in circles. People looked up. A giant shadow covered the city. The sky slowly turned red, like blood. At first, people thought it was some kind of strange weather. But then the clouds opened and they saw it. A massive alien ship. It was black, round, and larger than any building on Earth. It hovered above the city like a dark god. It was not alone. More ships appeared above London, Beijing, Moscow, and other major cities. They made no noise. They gave no warning. Then came the first strike. A bright beam of light shot from the ship over New York. In 1 second, the Empire State Building was gone. Just dust. People screamed, cars crashed, phones stopped working. Panic spread fast. Every city, the same thing happened. The aliens attacked without mercy. The world was confused. Why? Who were these attackers? What did they want? The governments tried to talk. They sent messages to the ships. But there was no answer, only more attacks. Bombs fell. Cities burned. Millions died in just one day. Earth was under attack, and no one was ready. In a bunker under Washington, D.C., a small group of scientists and soldiers watched everything on their screens. Among them was Captain Sarah Reed. She was a war veteran, brave and smart. Her hands shook as she watched the red sky over her hometown. "We need to fight back," she said. "But how?" asked one of the generals. "Our missiles can't reach them. They're too high, and their shields block everything." Suddenly, a young scientist shouted, "I found something." He showed them a strange signal coming from one of the alien ships. It was a message, but not for Earth. It was a private message between alien commanders. Somehow their system had picked it up by mistake. Captain Reed read the translation out loud. The words were cold and cruel. "This planet will fall fast. Humans are weak. Take what we need. Leave nothing behind." The room went silent. "Captain," Reed looked around. "They think we are weak. They think we will just die and say nothing. But they are wrong." Outside, the sky stayed red. People hid in basements. Fires burned in the streets. But something inside the humans had changed. Fear turned into anger. Pain turned into strength. In the ruins of New York, a firefighter named Marcus pulled people from rubble. His own brother was killed in the first blast, but Marcus kept helping others. In Japan, a young woman named Aiko used her drone to track alien movements. She sent the data to anyone who could use it. In Africa, tribes that had once fought each other now shared food and water. All over the world, humans helped humans. No borders, no politics, just survival. The aliens had made one big mistake. They attacked Earth thinking it was weak. But Earth was strong in a way the aliens did not understand. Back in the bunker, Captain Reed gave the first order of what would become the United Earth Defense. Start collecting all alien tech. Every piece, every ship part, every weapon. If we can't match them, we'll learn from them. If we can't win today, we'll win tomorrow. And so the plan began. The aliens had hit first, but they had woken something deep inside humanity. Something powerful, something dangerous. The red sky stayed for 3 more days. But when it finally cleared, the Earth was no longer the same. It was broken, yes, but it was also united. And it would never forget what the aliens had done, because the war had just begun. The world was in chaos, but the people of Earth were not broken. They had been hurt, yes, but they had also found something inside them. The fear, the panic. It had turned into something stronger. A need for unity. A need for survival. In every corner of the globe, people were coming together. Those who had once been enemies now stood side by side. The governments that had once been divided by borders and politics were now working together in ways no one had ever imagined. There were no more leaders of individual countries. Now, there was just one goal: to protect Earth. In the heart of what was once Washington, D.C., the world's leaders gathered. The city, damaged by the attack, now had one purpose: to form a plan for humanity's future. Inside the secure buildings, experts from all over the world sat around a large table. Captain Sarah Reed was there too, watching the proceedings. She had seen firsthand the power of unity. She had seen it in the way people helped each other, the way they shared whatever little they had left, and the way they worked together to build something new. The aliens had struck first, but the Earth had struck back with something far stronger than weapons: a united front. "We need to act fast," said one of the generals, a man from India. "Every day they are here, they are learning more about us, studying our weaknesses." "We know," replied Sarah, her voice calm but firm. "But we also know that they didn't expect this. They didn't expect us to come together like this." The leaders of Earth agreed on one thing. The aliens had underestimated humanity. They had thought humans were weak, that they were divided. But they had learned the hard way that humans would do anything to survive. And now, they were ready to fight back, not just with strength, but with their minds. Across the world, secret labs were built. People worked together to study the alien technology. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel all came together, working side by side to understand how the alien ships worked. They didn't know exactly how to beat the invaders yet, but they had a plan. And the first step was simple: learn. In Europe, a group of scientists had begun to reverse engineer the alien weapons they had recovered. A small makeshift lab set, up in the middle of Paris, hummed with activity. It was a mixture of chaos and brilliance. "We don't have much time," said Dr. Olivia Sanchez, the head of the team. "But we have what we need to learn. We have the alien tech." Aiko, the young woman from Japan, had become a hero in her own right. Using the data she had gathered from her drones, she had created a network to track the movements of the alien ships. Her work helped the world's military forces understand where the aliens were going next, giving them a chance to prepare. Meanwhile, Marcus, the firefighter from New York, was leading efforts to rebuild cities. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't a scientist, but he was a survivor, and he was teaching others how to survive too. "It's about community," he told those around him. "We rebuild one building at a time, one city at a time, together." In Africa, the once warring tribes had come together to help each other. They shared resources, food, and medical supplies with people who needed it. People from different cultures, different backgrounds worked as one. But it wasn't just civilians who were coming together. The world's military forces, which had once been separate, were now unified. Soldiers from every country, trained in different ways, were learning how to fight as one. It was a slow process, but they knew they had no choice. One of the most important parts of the plan was communication. The world had to share information, everything. No secrets, no individual goals. It was all for the survival of Earth. And this idea spread quickly. As the world's nations and people came together, something amazing began to happen. They were no longer just Earth's defenders, they were Earth's family. In secret bases hidden across the globe, the United Earth Defense was formed. It was not an army of soldiers, but an army of thinkers, builders, creators, and survivors. No one was left behind. Everyone had a part to play. But even with all the progress, there was one question that lingered. What would the aliens do next? They had attacked, yes, but why? What did they want from Earth? The answer was still unclear, but one thing was certain. Earth was no longer just a planet waiting to be conquered. It was a planet that was ready to fight back. Captain Reed stood before the United Earth Defense, looking at the people around her. "We're stronger than they think," she said. "We're not just fighting to survive. We're fighting for something more. We're fighting for our future." And in that moment, the world knew that no matter what happened, no one would ever look at Earth the same way again. The aliens had made a huge mistake. They had made Earth unite. And now, the fight for survival was just beginning. As the world's people united, the task ahead seemed impossible. But one thing was clear: Humanity had not given up. They had not surrendered. The first alien attack was a reminder of Earth's vulnerability, but also of its strength. The aliens had underestimated humans, and now they would see that mistake. Insar. The months that followed the attack, Earth scientists worked tirelessly. Every day new discoveries were made. The alien technology, once a terrifying mystery, began to make sense. Slowly, humans began to understand how the ships worked, how the weapons functioned, and how their energy shields kept them safe. Each new breakthrough brought them closer to being able to stand toe-to-toe with the invaders. In the heart of what had once been New York City, now a hub for the United Earth Defense, a special team of scientists had come together. They had discovered something critical. The alien shields weren't invincible. There was a weak spot. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there. And if they could target it, they could disable the shields. For the first time since the invasion, there was hope. But hope alone would not win the war. Humans needed more than just knowledge. They needed courage. They needed to act. In the middle of all this preparation, Captain Sarah Reed had become the face of Earth's resistance. Her calm, strategic mind and unshakable will had made her a natural leader. She had seen too many people suffer, too many cities fall, but she had also seen something incredible, the power of unity. And now, as she stood before the world's military leaders, she knew it was time to act. We have the technology, we have the will, and now we must strike, Sarah said, looking at the faces around her. This is our chance. If we do not act now, we may never get another. The plan was simple. The United Earth Defense would build a fleet of ships capable of traveling to the alien base on Mars. These ships, equipped with the knowledge Earth scientists had gathered, would be able to break through the alien shields. Once the shields were down, the humans would have their chance. The leaders of Earth's military forces nodded in agreement. They had seen the power of the alien technology, and they knew that if the Earth could take control of even one of those ships, it would change everything. But Sarah also knew that this wasn't just about winning a battle. This was about sending a message to the aliens. This was about proving that humans could not be easily defeated. As Earth's military began to prepare for the mission, another problem arose. There was an unknown alien ship, one that had been spotted near Mars. It was different from the others. Larger, quieter, and moving at a pace that was difficult for human tracking systems to follow. It was clear that this ship was watching Earth. But why? What was its purpose? Aiko, the young woman from Japan who had been tracking alien movements since the beginning of the attack, was the first to pick up the signal. She sent the data to Sarah, who quickly realized that this ship was not just monitoring the planet. It was waiting for something. We need to find out what they know, Sarah said, her mind racing. This ship is more than just a scout. It's a message. The aliens are watching us. They want to see how far we'll go. Meanwhile, the work on Earth continued. The new fleet, a collection of ships built from Earth's own resources and the alien technology, was taking shape. Each ship was designed to be faster, more agile, and capable of penetrating the alien shields. The work was difficult and took time, but the humans were determined. As the ships were being prepared, Marcus, the firefighter from New York, found himself on the front lines of rebuilding. He had been part of a small team that had started with the task of saving survivors. Now he was part of a much larger mission, creating a stronger world for humanity to return to. As he moved through the ruins, he met people from all walks of life, people who had once thought only of their own lives. Now they worked together, side by side, in the hope of a better future. The Earth was no longer a place of broken dreams. It was a place of action. In every part of the world, people were coming together. In Africa, the tribes that had once fought against each other now shared their knowledge of the land, helping to rebuild cities, creating safe zones, and protecting the weak. In South America, farmers worked with engineers to produce new, faster-growing crops. while in Europe, medical experts shared vital knowledge about surviving the harsh conditions left by the invasion. But it wasn't just the people of Earth who had noticed the change. The aliens, too, were watching. They had expected a quick victory, but they had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight back. Now, with the new fleet ready and more people uniting each day, Earth was no longer just a target. It was becoming a threat. Sarah's plan was simple: strike fast, strike hard, and strike together. The time had come for Earth to show the aliens what they were truly capable of. The first wave of ships would be ready within the next month, and they would launch toward Mars. The humans would learn all they could about the alien base. They would discover their weaknesses and use those weaknesses to win. But there was one thing that Sarah knew for certain. This was only the beginning. The aliens had attacked Earth, but humanity was not going to just let them walk away. Earth had woken up, and now it was ready to fight back. The quiet before the storm was unsettling. All over the world, people waited. The final preparations for humanity's first offensive were taking place. The United Nations of Earth were putting aside their differences and focusing on one single goal: defeating the alien invaders. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting to protect the future of their planet. In the newly formed headquarters, scientists, engineers, and military leaders were focused on one thing: getting the fleet of ships ready for launch. The alien technology, which had once been a symbol of fear, was now a valuable tool. The ships, designed with Earth's own resources, would be humanity's first true weapon against the invaders. But it wasn't just the ships that gave them hope. It was the knowledge they had gained, the understanding of the alien technology, and more importantly, the understanding of the aliens themselves. Sarah stood in the command room, her eyes scanning the monitors that displayed the progress of the fleet's preparation. The aliens were not just an external threat, they were an enigma. The more Earth scientists studied them, the more they realized that the invaders were not a monolithic force. There were different factions among them, different goals. Some were conquerors, others were explorers, and some seemed to be simply following orders. This knowledge was crucial. If they could exploit the differences within the alien ranks, they could find a way to divide and conquer. Meanwhile, the world's attention was focused on the upcoming mission. In every country, people watched as the fleet of ships prepared to leave Earth's atmosphere. The stakes were higher than ever before. Success would mean that humanity had a fighting chance. Failure, however, could be the end of everything. Across the globe, there were pockets of resistance that were quietly preparing for the next phase of the fight. Small groups of civilians who had once been ordinary people were now playing crucial roles. Some had turned into engineers, others into strategists, and still others into scouts. They were no longer waiting for someone else to act. They were acting themselves. They knew that their survival depended on their willingness to work together and to do whatever was necessary. One such group was led by Aiko, the young woman who had been tracking alien movements from the beginning. Her small team of tech experts had been working with a group of engineers to build a new form of communication that would allow the United Earth Defense to stay connected, no matter where they were. It was an urgent task. The alien technology was powerful, and if they couldn't communicate across vast distances, it would make coordinating their efforts impossible. In the United Earth Defense headquarters, Sarah and her team were finalizing the plan. It was risky. They knew it was risky. The alien ship orbiting Mars had not moved. The team had tracked its movements for weeks, and it seemed to be waiting. But for what? They couldn't be sure, but one thing was certain. If they didn't act soon, the aliens would. "We need to move quickly," Sarah said, addressing the gathered leaders. "We know they're watching. We know they're waiting. If we give them more time, they'll find a way to stop us. We have one shot at this." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment there was silence. But then, a voice from across the room broke the quiet. "We're ready," said Dr. Olivia Sanchez, the lead scientist on the project. "The ships are ready. The technology is ready. Now we just need to take the first step." And with that, The decision was made. The United Earth Defense would launch the first wave of ships toward Mars. The goal was simple: discover the alien base, gather as much information as possible, and return with it. But they had to be careful. If the alien forces on Mars discovered their movements too early, it could spell disaster. The key was stealth. As the ships left Earth's atmosphere, the excitement was palpable. People all over the world watched as the first wave of humanity's fleet ventured into space. There were no words that could fully capture the feeling of watching Earth's united forces take their first step toward reclaiming their planet. It was as though the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. But as the ships neared Mars, a strange thing occurred. The alien ship, which had remained stationary for weeks, suddenly began to move. It was as though it had been waiting for them all along. The moment the fleet entered Mars's orbit, the alien ship responded, its engines flaring to life. It wasn't just reacting to the presence of the human ships. It was actively preparing for something. The stakes had just been raised. Inside, the lead ship, Sarah and her team watched as the alien ship's movements were tracked on the monitors. There was no way to know exactly what it was doing, but the fact that it was moving was a clear sign that the aliens were not going to let Earth's fleet approach without a fight. "We have to be ready for anything," Sarah said, her voice steady. "Our mission hasn't changed. We're here to learn, to gather information. But if we're forced to engage, we'll fight back." Aiko, from her post back on Earth, was the first to detect something unusual. A new signal had emerged from Mars. It wasn't just an alien broadcast, it was a message. The message was clear, but its meaning wasn't. It was a warning. But was it a warning to the Earth fleet or a warning from the aliens to each other? No one could be sure. As the fleet moved closer to Mars, it became clear that the first phase of the mission was about to begin. But what they would discover, and what would happen next, was still unknown. One thing was certain, though. Humanity had taken its first bold step into the unknown. They had sent a message of their own. They would no longer wait. Earth was ready for what came next, and for the aliens watching, the countdown had begun. The tension in space was unlike anything Earth had ever known. The fleet of ships now entering Mars's orbit moved in synchronized precision, each one piloted by skilled crews who had spent months training for this moment. Sarah Reed, watching from the lead ship, felt a weight on her shoulders. This was not just a mission, it was a turning point for all of humanity. The unknown stretched out before them, a vast and silent void, and with it came a sense of uncertainty. No one knew exactly what lay ahead. As the ships edged closer to the alien ship that had been watching them, the silence grew. Every crew member aboard the fleet was on edge, waiting for the first sign of what was to come. The message from the alien ship, intercepted earlier by Aiko, echoed in their minds. It was unclear, cryptic, and far too unsettling. Was it a warning? A sign of aggression? Or perhaps something else altogether? No one could say for sure. But one thing was certain: the aliens were ready for something. And so were they. Sarah turned to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Marcus Lee. His face was calm, but his eyes betrayed the unease that all of them shared. "What do you think it means?" Sarah asked quietly, her gaze fixed on the shifting patterns in the distance. Marcus studied the data on the screen in front of him. "It's not a regular communication," he said, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "It's not like anything we've seen before. It's like they're trying to tell us something. Maybe they don't want us here." "That's what I'm worried about," Sarah replied, her voice tight with concern. "They've been watching us for too long. What if they've been waiting for this?" Just then, Aiko's voice crackled through the communication system, cutting through the tense atmosphere. "Captain Reed, I've detected something unusual on the surface of Mars. It's faint, but there's definitely a structure there. We don't know if it's an alien base or something else, but we need to proceed with caution." The crew fell silent, the weight of Aiko's words sinking in. There was no longer any question about what was ahead. The structure on Mars was real and it was their target. But now, The question was whether they would be ready for whatever lay inside. Sarah's mind raced as she considered their next move. They couldn't afford to approach recklessly. The alien ship's movement suggested it was aware of their presence and perhaps even prepared for their arrival. They needed to be strategic, patient, and precise. "Let's move in slowly," Sarah commanded. "Keep all communication channels open. We don't know what we'll encounter when we reach the surface, but we need to be ready for anything." As the fleet advanced toward Mars, the atmosphere grew heavier. The alien ship above them remained eerily still, watching, waiting. The closer they got to the Martian surface, the more palpable the tension became. The vast red landscape stretched out below them, barren and silent, hiding its secrets beneath the surface. What lay beneath the dust and stone? Were the aliens already preparing for their next move? With every passing moment, the crew could feel the weight of their mission more and more. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the future of humanity, rested on their shoulders. There was no turning back now. Hours passed in near silence as the fleet made its way toward the mysterious structure. Sarah couldn't help but glance out at the barren Martian landscape. It looked desolate from afar, a lifeless world of red, soil and scattered rocks. Yet there was a sense of something hidden, something waiting beneath that surface. The feeling was almost suffocating. She couldn't shake the thought that they were about to uncover something far greater than they had anticipated. Finally, the fleet arrived at the coordinates Aiko had provided. From their ships, they could see the faint outline of the structure, below, partially covered by dust and debris. It wasn't just a base, it was something more complex, something built to withstand the harsh conditions of Mars. The sheer size of it took Sarah by surprise. The structure was massive, far larger than any human-made facility. This was no simple military base. This was something ancient, something that had been here far longer than humanity could have imagined. Aiko's voice came through again, this time filled with a sense of urgency. "Captain Reed, I'm seeing multiple energy readings coming from beneath the structure. It's like the entire area is powered, but I can't get a clear sense of what it's for." "Are we in danger?" Marcus asked, his tone filled with concern. "I'm not sure," Aiko responded. "It's possible that the energy readings are just from their technology, but we can't take any chances. Whatever we do, we need to approach this with caution." Sarah nodded, making a quick decision. "We're landing. Stay in contact with us, Aiko. If anything seems off, we pull back immediately." The fleet descended toward the surface of Mars, the air thick with tension. As they touched down, the ground trembled ever so slightly, the ship's landing gear sinking slightly into the dust. The crew prepared for the unknown. Every movement, every breath, seemed amplified in the stillness. The structure before them was massive. Its dark walls stretched into the sky like something that had been built to last for millennia. It was silent, but to Sarah it seemed to pulse with a strange energy as if it were alive. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary place. It was more than just a base. It was a symbol, a message left behind by a civilization, far older than they could imagine. The air was still, and for a moment everything felt frozen in time. The Earth's fleet had arrived at the heart of the alien presence on Mars. But what they would find inside they could only guess. "We move out in teams," Sarah said firmly, breaking the silence. "Keep your eyes open. This is just the beginning." As the crew began to gather their equipment and prepare to exit the ship, the feeling that they were about to discover something world-changing lingered in the air. Whatever the aliens were waiting for, they would soon know, and Earth would never be the same. The silence of the Martian landscape was unnerving. As the crew members gathered their equipment, each person felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. There was no turning back now. They had landed on Mars, and ahead of them stood the massive structure, an alien monument of sorts, its dark, weathered surface reflecting the pale light of the distant sun. For all the excitement and anticipation, there was also fear. They were about to uncover secrets that might change everything they knew about the universe. But what were those secrets, and what would they find inside? Sarah led her team toward the entrance of the structure. The air was thin, and the gravity was weaker than Earth's. but the crew had trained for this. They moved carefully, each step deliberate as they approached the entrance. The door, if it could be called that, was a giant slab of dark material, seamlessly blending into the rest of the building. It looked almost alive, like it had grown from the Martian soil itself. As Sarah reached out to touch the surface, a low hum vibrated through her fingers. The door shifted ever so slightly, revealing a faint glow from within. It was as if the structure itself was aware of their presence. With a soft, mechanical sound, the entrance slowly began to open. Inside was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were made of the same dark material, but they shimmered with strange, luminous patterns. The air was cool, almost damp, and there was an odd sense of stillness. It was a feeling of being in a place that had not seen human life for eons. The atmosphere inside felt both ancient and timeless, as if this place had been untouched for centuries, maybe even longer. "We need to stay alert," Sarah said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "We don't know what's inside, but we need to move carefully." Her team nodded, and they began to advance through the dimly lit corridor. Their footsteps echoed softly against the walls as they moved deeper into the structure. Every turn seemed to lead to another, but they stayed focused, following the faint trail of energy readings Aiko had detected earlier. The further they went, the more intense the energy signals became. It was as if they were drawing closer to something important, something that had been waiting for them. After what felt like hours, they finally arrived at a large open chamber. The room was vast, its ceiling disappearing into darkness. In the center of the chamber, a glowing object sat on a pedestal. It was spherical, but its surface was covered in intricate symbols and markings. Alien, to be sure, but there was something oddly familiar about them. They seemed to pulse with energy, like the heart of the structure itself. Sarah approached the object cautiously, her team following closely behind. The moment she reached out to touch it, the entire room seemed to come alive. The symbols on the object flickered, and the air around them seemed to shimmer. For a brief moment, Sarah could feel a presence, something watching them, but she couldn't say from where. It was as if the object itself was aware of their touch. Heiko's voice came through the communication system, breaking the tension. "Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. I'm detecting a massive increase in power coming from the structure. It's like it's activating." "What does that mean?" Sarah asked, her voice tight with concern. "I'm not sure, but it's like it's preparing for something," Aiko responded. "You need to be careful. Whatever you're touching, it might not be as dormant as we thought." But it was too late. As Sarah's fingers brushed against the surface of the object, a sudden flash of light filled the chamber. The team shielded their eyes, but the light was blinding. It lasted only a moment, but when it faded, everything had changed. The chamber was no longer as it had been. The walls, which had once been dark and lifeless, now glowed with the same symbols that covered the object. The air hummed with energy, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse. It was as though they had triggered something far more powerful than they had imagined. "Captain, get out of there." Aiko's voice was urgent, panic lacing her words. "The structure, it's shifting. It's not just a building. It's a machine. You need to leave now." But Sarah didn't move. She couldn't. Her eyes were fixed on the object in the center of the room. It was no longer just a mysterious artifact. It was something far more. The symbols on its surface were now shifting, rearranging themselves into a pattern that seemed almost familiar. "Their coordinates," Sarah whispered, the realization dawning on her. This isn't just a weapon or a technology. It's a map to something else." Her team gathered around her, looking at the glowing object, with a mix of awe and fear. If the object was a map, where did it lead? What did the aliens want them to find? And why had they waited until now to reveal it? Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath them shook. The walls of the chamber groaned as if the structure itself were waking up. Sarah's heart raced, and she quickly motioned for her team to move. "We need to get out of here. Now," she ordered. The team turned and sprinted toward the exit, but the path back seemed longer than it had been. The walls were shifting, the floor tilting at strange angles. The structure was no longer passive. It was alive, reacting to their presence, responding to the activation of the object. As they raced back to the ship, Sarah's mind raced with questions. They had triggered something, but what was it? Was it a weapon, a tool, or something more? The coordinates on the object were their next step, but they didn't know where they would lead. And, more importantly, they didn't know what consequences their discovery would have for Earth, or for humanity as a whole. As the crew boarded the ship and prepared to leave the Martian surface, Sarah could only wonder what awaited them. The journey had just begun, and the path ahead was filled with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear: the secrets of Mars had been uncovered, and they would never be the same again.